Fifth Element. It's such a good movie. Oh my gosh. I have to deal with this for off screen before we start the stream, guys. Every time, because I have to defend myself.
Welcome to One Stop Co-op.
And this, Bairnt, is what you call a cold open.
That's right.
It's impossible, guys. It's impossible.
Sorry, you had the timer running.
Thumbs down.
With the timer running, and I had to get into defense mode because I was being attacked from all angles. I was being attacked from this angle over here. Oops, that way. I was being attacked by this angle. That way over there. Oh my gosh. I kind of had Steve on my side.
So welcome to the co-op chat. This is our live chat that happens weekly with a focus on cooperative board games generally. We are not talking about Fifth Element, though we were just before.
Thank goodness. I have a lot of opinions on that movie. I'm just saying.
And I will agree with you on every single one.
Thank you, Derrick. I feel so good.
All right, are we done talking about it? Okay, good. I'm back.
So I see a lot of people here. So hey, Matthew, nice to see you here. Jan, Steph, how's it going? Emil, how's it going, Emil? Nice to see you.
What's up?
Emil, thanks for joining. Am I muted? No, I'm good.
You should be muted.
Jan, generally about co-ops, and everything else. Yeah, no, we cover a lot of ground here. Let's be real. So, okay, so as you can tell, we have someone special who hasn't been on this one yet. Colin.
Yay! Finally.
You had the chance of a lifetime to make the big impression, and that was what you got.
This is so exciting. I'm super pumped to be here. Thank you for letting me join. I appreciate it.
That's good. It almost sounded like
Bo Colin be like,
screaming.
Gotta join us. Colin, gotta join us. When are you going to be on co-op chat? Because like this is an open format. I don't really care who joins. Like, just come on. Let's talk about it. So I've been wanting him and others to come on. So we'll get the rest of the team on at some point too. So
we're not good enough for Steve. He has to call in. He's
like, I gotta get somebody else in here. These two exhaust me. Especially the one at the bottom over there. He likes the Fifth Element, so. Oh man.
Okay, so what are we talking about today? We're talking about campaign games, but more specifically about engagement in them. On how like there's a lot of campaign games out there, and at some point quite a few of them tend to be quite long. And then how do you stay engaged, wanting to finish up? Because I feel like a lot of folks start campaign games and not many of them actually get to the end of it. And so we're going to talk about that aspect of it, because I know, Colin, you've had recent thoughts about this. So maybe you want to start off with that.
Sure. Well, although Derrick was about to say something. What are you going to say, Derrick?
Oh, sorry.
I was more curious to ask to find the answer on how to stay engaged. The question needs to be asked is what causes the disengagement. Like what is it about the game that makes you start feeling disengaged? And that leads into Colin. What your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I think all of that. I mean, so we a bit of a background here, quick, is that Bairnt and I are on the precipice of ending Oathsworn. That's a 21 mission campaign, which is phenomenal. I'm having a great time with this guy, which is quite surprising. But as we were playing it, the last two or three chapters.
Okay, wait, hold on a second, just to let people know.
I'm not going to say it. The last 2 or 3 chapters, there's been something that's happening.
Okay,
yeah. I'm not going to be, dude.
Well, I didn't know. Bad. I thought you spoil Oathsworn for everybody.
No, I'm not spoiling it, but it has brought something to our attention that made us think about these topics that we wanted to talk about during about campaigns. And so what we have been trying to figure out is, because I would say both Bairnt and I are people that love to play campaign games, but when we started walking through a lot of the ones that we played, Chronicles of Drunagar, Star of Ikarios, ISS Vanguard, Pandemic Legacy, there's all these different ones that we have played that, Journeys in Middle Earth, Lord of the Rings Journeys in Middle Earth, where we ended up not finishing. a lot of them. And so then my biggest question was, okay, if I'm a designer of a game, how do I make sure that the people that have purchased my game will actually enjoy it to the fullest of its extent? Or maybe that's not the intention. And I just wanted to kind of have the conversation on, how do you keep yourself engaged in campaign games? And Derrick, kind of like what you said, what makes you fall out of it, out of a campaign game, and figure out either if maybe that doesn't matter to you, but to me, it bothers me that I have these games and I want to experience the game in its full, glory. But I don't ever seem to give it enough time to make that happen. And I want to know why. And I feel like there's a couple different things that I've seen in the certain games that we have fallen off that I thought would be fun to talk about today. Does that make sense?
Yan has an interesting point. He says, was that a way to say it turned boring for you for the chapters? I would say it's not turned boring. I think what we're finding is one of the things we talked about, or things we can talk about, is adding filler unnecessarily. And so that's potentially one of the issues that causes a campaign game to go stale, is because the story itself is starting to drag. And I think that happens in almost all different types of campaigns you play, depending on I shouldn't say that. It can happen. It can happen. And I think the reason behind it, like I was talking to Colin off screen, but I think it's important to talk about, is one of the things that designers do when it comes to making campaign games, they want to put a big number up there. 80 hours, 120 hours, 40 hours. But did it really need to be that long? Or did you just add a bunch of filler to it to make it that long that we probably didn't need? Like we were talking off screen, some of the stories near the end, we probably could have gone without, and it would have been just fine. And maybe would have gotten to an ending, a more epic ending at a sooner pace instead of dragging it on. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
100%. Yeah, I feel like
because I'm coming up with questions and responses. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I feel like one of the big things with a Kickstarter especially is that they'll come up with, let's do 40 hours or whatever, put it on there, and it's this huge boon that people see. It's a benefit. Oh my gosh, I can play, Gloomhaven has 100+ hours of gameplay. I could sink my life into this game, which you really could, for an extended period of time. But then once they start designing the game, after the game's been kickstarted and they're trying to finalize and put everything together, they're realizing, okay, well, scenario 1 and scenario 50, there's not a ton of difference, and that's okay, because we just got to get the game done and get it out, right? And we've got to make sure to get that out to the people so they can enjoy the game. And so instead of spending the time, because they don't probably have the time to make different, variety of scenarios or provide different ways to get you back into the game, that after, you've played 20 scenarios of Gloomhaven, you go, I love the game, but it's kind of the same thing over and over and over and over and over and over again. And so how do you, what's going to keep you playing it? Is it the people that you're playing it with? Is it the actual game itself? It was just something that we were thinking about.
Yeah, with Gloomhaven, for sure, it's the people we're playing with.
Yeah.
That's 100%.
Yeah.
It comes down to a couple things. There's a lot. There's a lot in this topic.
I'm sure,
and a lot of things that spread out into different avenues. Like, I can answer that question as a content creator, and I can answer that question as a non-content creator, right?
Yep.
So I wrote down some stuff as y'all were talking, because I didn't want to get the fall out of my head. But one of the things that we talked about, Colin, when you were saying about, like, okay, Kickstarters come off and they want to show these big numbers, that is audience driven, right? I've talked about this a couple times where I say, like, a lot of the community, a lot of the audience feels like they're helpless or they're this towards these prices and these costs, but they contribute directly to it. If someone says, I've got a 5-hour campaign, but the cost to build my game is you're gonna be coming $120 out your pocket, people are gonna say no, because that's not enough time and content. So then they start averaging out these numbers to say, okay, well, I saw that this game for $240 sold and it had this amount of hours of game time, which means if I need to get in that price range, I need to provide that same amount, or else people will say that's not enough gameplay for the price point that you're asking. So that puts a lot of people off to say. So Kickstarters could not be successful because now the audience is demanding more, right? It's the same thing with the minis discussion that we had a while ago, where if now there's this thing of, okay, well, there's no minis in your game. I don't want it. I want minis, not standees. And so that's driving up the cost of production because people are craving more and more and more and more. What comes out of that is that as a non-content creator, you say, okay, well, I'll back this project because it has, I mean, Tenaris Adventures, I think the latest one that's out there has like, I think it's at 1,500 hours of content of campaign.
Yep.
And people are like, hey, I want to play Tenaris Adventures. So they've got that. Then they've got Stars of Icarios. Then they've got Aeon Trespass Odyssey. Then they've got all these other games. And when they look back at it on their shelves, finally, when everything is delivered and sitting there, they've got so much hours of content that they can never get to it all. So therefore, there's this sense of overwhelm, and they don't do any of it.
Now, see, as a consumer, one of the things I mentioned is I kind of went back to my video game roots of myself sitting in my basement after work because I'd work for 8 hours. I wasn't married. I had no kids. I'd go home and I had like 3 TVs set up in my basement, and I would play video games from the minute I got home at 3 o'clock until 10:30 at night. And I didn't have a lot of money at the time either. So now from a consumer point of view, I don't have all those games on my shelf. I want that one game, and I want that game to last. You know what I mean? That was back when, like, was it Elder Scrolls came out? I'm like, this game's awesome. I can play this game for like 120 hours. This is so great. I'm getting bang for my buck. This is gonna be amazing. Now Bairnt now has kids, has a family. He looks at a game and goes, 120 hours. Seriously, you couldn't have shortened that? That's out of control. I'm gravitating towards. I'm talking video games, not board games. I'm gravitating towards those games like, hey, this game has a average play time about 6 to 12 hours. I'm like, that's fantastic. And then I got to think about it. Was the other game I played back in my day that was 120 hours? This would be awesome. Did it need to be that long? Was there that much that needed to be in there? Or was it fun to just have that concrete story that just moved you forward and was like really engaging the whole time? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think that's just another thing to think about.
I want to throw something out there because it's talking about like I want this game to last, right? I want to have a lot to mess with the game. And so we're talking about campaign games. So I'm going to like go off topic slightly here. But what about like lifestyle games? Like stuff that you have a ton of content for. Like, for example, Derrick and I finished our Marvel United crossover campaign. Yeah. We had like 94 videos for that one. 94. So a lot of content there, right?
Broke the record.
That's a lot. But like, is that aspect, or is a lifestyle game like that, does that fill that void as well?
It can. It all depends, though. See, that's the thing. Like, there's a lot of factors that deal with this, and it's not just one thing.
Right.
Bairnt talked about the amount of time of play. Colin talked about filler stuff that's sitting in there that just kind of bogs the game down. For my sense, it's an amalgam of all of it. For me, for a game to last and really make it, the core mechanics need to be tight. Right? So to me, Marvel United, under its core, it's a simple mechanic, 30 minutes, like Bairnt said, time to play, 30 minutes. Play a game, knock it out, you're done. Move on. When I look at games like Madara or games like Oathsworn, like they're playing, I then start playing it more and diving into the mechanics, and the flash and flare of the minis falls away. The components and the boards, because Madara has beautiful board maps and board components, falls away. And it goes down to the core mechanics. Is that enough for me to sink the amount of time that I have into it? And if the answer is no, then bleh.
But the answer is yes.
No, the answer is no for me.
Well, the answer is yes.
No.
100%.
Colin, I feel so seen by you right now. You have no idea. I feel so seen.
I am with you, Derrick. So far, we're 2 for 2.
Oh man, and I think that's the thing that keeps people is the core mechanics of it. For me, Stars of Ikarios had an amazing core ship combat system. Everything else around it was not good for me. And I don't mean to. Games makes really great games, so I'm not going to knock their game. It's just more for me. The planet side module, the story, all these other things didn't sync, but the core mechanic of the ship battle was fun. So it was just more, okay, now that's fun. I go up. Do I want to sink as much hours in the story I don't care about? Because I'm a big story person? Not really. So then it fell away. Oh, Colin, we haven't heard from you in a bit. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I mean, this is exactly what what Bairnt and I were talking about, and I feel like everyone. The other thing that Bairnt was kind of alluding to is that the problem is you've got consumers that want very different things. You want there's consumers that want. I don't care if it's filler. I want 150 hours for this one game because I bought this one game and it's going to be my game that I'm going to play this year. Pretty much that's all I'm going to do because I buy 1 or 2 games a year.
Right.
And so for them, a game that has filler or 150 hours or, Star of Ikarios, so you've got the 3 different types of the game, right? The planet, the ship, to them, that is just, juice. It's icing. It's wonderful. But for people that are avid collectors of games and get a lot of different games, when I want to play one of these campaign games, I want something new and interesting every scenario. Otherwise, when I'm playing that scenario, I'm going, okay, this is exactly. I mean, I'm just thinking of the Star of Ikarios campaign. There's like 6 missions for the prologue. And all of them had just like the tiniest bit of a difference. Otherwise, we were doing the same thing over and over again. And I mean, sure, it was teaching you how all of that worked, but I mean, by the time we finished the prologue, Bairnt and I are like, okay, well, we're going to take a break and play something else. I didn't even get into chapter or act 1.
And you did fine by doing that. See, that's the thing. Like when the core mechanics of the ship combat, you played the prologue and it's fun. When you get outside of the prologue in the chapter 1, it has nothing to do with the prologue.
Mm-hmm.
And I just did not care.
Yeah.
And like the planet module, the story, I didn't care. I was just like, I wanted to get back to the story of the prologue. Like something big happened, this amazing thing happened, and now we're into this stuff that has we're into this next story that has nothing to do with anything that just happened.
Well, I think another thing is you have to decide how far do you want to go before you're going to give up on it. Like Colin and I were saying, we got through the prologue. We really get to experience like the game. Was that enough but what is that too much prologue to be able to teach the game? Or, I mean, honestly, I think Oathsworn almost brutally introduces you to the game. I mean, it's like, okay, you're going to put your guys out. Here's how it's going to work. Oh, by the way, I'm going to introduce minion work to you right off the bat. I'm going to introduce like how things move. You're going to have to deal with all the cards, like almost like Gloomhaven. Here's your hand of cards. And once you get through that first one, I mean, there's a lot of going back to the book of the first chapter, but you're not playing like Colin says 5 chapters in Stars of Ikarios. Just learn how to fly, how to shoot, how to maneuver your ship around the board, how to get better attacks on people because you have skills now. You know what I mean? So you kind of wonder, are you going to lose those people? Like Madara is also similar to, I think, Oathsworn, where it was just like, okay, here are your characters and your whole set of equipment all just pooped out on your like game tray. Right? All of a sudden you're like, okay, so I've got something that does combo attacks. I've got something that does, okay, how am I doing? Like, so it really, but again, it kind of really introduced your game right there. And if you don't like it by then you're good. There's a lot of great comments out there. I like the one that says Madara's story and character development made it flow well and is worth the 100 hours to play Act 1. Ha ha. No.
No. I love you, Fred, but I disagree.
Solo actually has a really great comment too about sleeping gods. He's on the fence of whether he should start the campaign because his ship sank. So there's another thing in campaign games. Do you fail forward, or do you have the replay the mission over and over concept? Yeah. I really enjoy the fail forward concept.
Yeah, I do too.
But
we say that. We say that we like that, but do you know how many times when I fail a mission, I'm like, you know what? If I just keep going forward and I've failed, okay. So I think the hard part when you have a fail forward, they've got to give you something back. Because if you fail forward and like, okay, start, but now you're weak and you're at a disadvantage for everything, it's really hard to want to go back into the campaign if your ship sinks. Your ship sinks, you're like, okay, well, do I really just want to keep going? I just have to discard 6 event cards. I lost a third of that, because you've got 3 chapters in there, a third of that chapter.
Fail forward can work, but they have to mitigate. You have to be able to, like you said, you have to be able to mitigate what I call the fall down the stairs thing. Pandemic Legacy Season 1 is a perfect example of non-mitigation. You lose a month, it spirals constantly. It spirals out of control. So it's harder to do that, just like you said. So fail forward's okay if it's mitigated by, okay, you failed forward, we're not going to beat you down for it.
Yeah, Emil might be able to help me on this. I think that some of the things we're looking forward to and some of this fail forward things, like we're not seeing an Oathsworn because technically you're not supposed to fail an Oathsworn. You're supposed to go back, kind of replay the mission, do a little bit better and stuff. But if you are bugged up, you're just supposed to go on. It'll say like, you stand over the monster as you slay it. So it's like, nope, he totally rocked us, did not slay the monster. You know what I mean? I remember right when I was looking into Rogue Angels, the way sometimes when you lose, you're on a different path. All of a sudden you're going somewhere else. I know Madara does this too, where you're going somewhere else. It's not like you're getting a hindrance and you're going into the next mission. It's you're going down a different path now and your story has changed. And I think that's where you need when it comes to a fail forward system, as opposed to just you get this bad card and you go forward. And hopefully you get rid of that card if you're lucky.
Steve,
the other one I did as well, because we just got done playing the Valid and Villainy campaign, which was nice because like we failed a lot early on in the campaign, but we still got to the end. It's one of those fail forward things. But even though we failed, we still got good stuff, right, to help us out. So that was a big thing. Like I think that has to happen. Like, but it's weird because like if you win, do you not get good stuff? I think you still need to have that. You still need to have an incentive for people to try to win and get that victory, to get that good stuff. Like you get more good stuff if you win that, but you also get some bad stuff too, which is interesting. That like levels up the bad deck because you did so well. So I think that was a really good approach to it. The other one that helps a lot is levers, difficulty levers.
Oh, I thought you said lovers. I was like, what?
Lovers too. You gotta play with lovers.
Bring it in, Bairnt. Bring it in.
Lovers are gonna help.
A big game where when I lose, I get lovers.
Oh man!
I guarantee you, there is one coming out now. Somebody's now writing it down.
Yep, you'll get your lovers. Board games are for lovers, exactly.
Oh my god!
Difficulty settings, right?
Okay, so levers. That would have been better.
Ways you could change the experience and make it easier or harder for you, regardless if you won or lost, right? Because yeah, you can rely on the designers or development team to kind of like, hey, here's fail forward, here's what you need to do, but ultimately being able to give that control to the players to tweak that would be the best solution.
Well, you're saying like homebrewing?
No, not homebrewing. Just having
levers
different
in the
options. Like
in
Valid and Villainy, there are 5 different options to make the game easier and 5 different options to make the game harder, and you can choose which ones you want to employ.
Okay.
Well,
so I don't want it slightly easier, I get 1. If I want a lot easier, I take 3 of them. If I want to make it slightly harder, so there's a lot of options there.
Steve, it is a little hard, especially with a campaign game, to know which difficulty level you should be, which is where, in my mind, a perfect campaign game, as you win, the game will get harder, and as you start losing, the game will get easier. Right. And so the game can, because the problem, especially if you fail forward, and let's say you have a bunch of missions, you've got 20 missions, Oathsworn. Okay. And as you are losing, then the game gives you more or provides something, maybe a card goes into all the enemy decks that makes them easier, instead of you as the player trying to have to determine how to make the balance, because you don't know what's coming up, but the designer does. And so if you're designing a game that has a campaign, and you want to make, you don't want to only give good things to people that are doing well and only give bad things to people that are doing bad. What you actually want to do the opposite. And I thought it was interesting, Derrick, you said that Pandemic Legacy Season 1 was a snowball. I actually had a very opposite effect. I loved that when you lost, you got more funding to get more event cards in. And then when you won, they took that funding away, so you had less event cards. And so then the scenarios were harder. I loved how they did that. We lost 2 months in a row. And so all of a sudden we got all these event cards. And then we were able to blow it out of the water for a couple months to get back on par. And then we ended up, winning one, losing one. And it was perfect. I felt like that actually did a much better job of let the game balanced itself, so that I, as a player, because I don't know what's going to come in the next scenario, I, as a player, don't have to decide, I need to make it harder. I need to make it easier. No, if I lost the game, guess what? Give me something to help me or make the enemies easier. And if I won the game, you could still give me something, but also maybe put in a harder card for the enemies or something. I wish more games did that. I'm just thinking of Arkham Horror, the card game. I love the game, but man, once you start, it's the snowball.
But to me, like, that's the opposite effect. Because I was going to bring up Arkham LCG. It was that when you lose a scenario, I don't feel like it snowballs. I feel like the story just continues. Like, so for instance, if you don't, and I'll just use the first core box because probably everybody's played that by now, but Midnight Masks, you have to find the cultists, right? And if you don't find them all, okay, you don't lose the scenario, you don't get penalized. The story just continues and they show up someplace else. And I like that. Like, I prefer that to, for me, when I played Pandemic, no matter how much funding they gave me, it just got harder. So I just kept, and maybe Yogi's right that maybe I'm just playing games wrong. I don't know, but it just, Pandemic Legacy, we failed 3 months and it was punishing, one after the other. And so it became difficult. But that doesn't mean I didn't have fun with the game. It was just more, it felt to me harder.
Yeah.
But with Arkham, I love that there is a story, you're traveling the story, and whether you complete the thing or not, the story keeps moving. And
which is true. And you made a good point that some scenarios, they do a really good job of, hey, you know what? Even if you lose it or you don't find as many of the people as you need, you still keep going forward. But there's also scenarios where when you lose them, like, hey, your investigator just died. Or, hey, you just took 2 physical and 2 mental trauma. So guess what? Your character that only has 3 total sanity starts the next scenario with 1 sanity.
That's true. That's true.
I rage quit that game when I was playing the Forgotten Age. Forgotten Age. And what happened is, by the 3rd scenario, Daisy had like 4 out of 5 physical damage, and she only had 1 health. And it's because we lost the first 2 scenarios. And to me, I was like, God, that's such a terrible design decision. If I'm losing, I need help. I need help me. Don't penalize me to make it worse. But I mean, that's also the game itself, right? The fun part about Arkham is you could just lose Daisy and start with a new character, and it works. And so you're right. And you can't do that with Pandemic Legacy because you're throwing stuff on the board, and that's what's making it all more harder. So,
like the stuff spreading, zones being shut down. Like for you, like you were describing, it's, if I lose the scenario, they give me more funding. But if I lose the scenario, areas are locked off.
Exactly.
Stuff is hard to do. Cities are in ruin. Things are burning. Bridges are over here. So it's like, you've given me more funding, but the game is damn near impossible at this point.
So, I'm curious, Derrick, because Colin said he didn't want or didn't like the idea of having different lovers in the game. For that.
Who wants lovers? Come on!
So for your Pandemic Season 1 experience, would you have like different difficulty levers for that?
No, because the game was what it was. I mean, I think that's the thing. I don't think I would want a different difficulty lever for that game. The game that had a difficulty lever, I almost said lever for me that I liked was Isofarian Guard.
I was gonna bring that up too, yeah.
Because I felt constant. I hate feeling that I can never keep up in a game. That's the reason why I didn't like Madara. I always felt like I couldn't keep up. If I'm not a min-maxer, I can't play this game. So for Bairnt's looking like, what are you talking about? Because Bairnt can do that. He can.
My guys are a joke.
He can do a build.
Don't look at my guys. My guys look like a joke.
He
There's
can
no
do a
way my guy
build
should
that,
be able
that
to
is
do it.
unreal and unrealistic out in this world. But for me, here's what happened with me and Madara, Colin, just to give you some context. I'm fighting these monsters where they're rolling dice that are higher than me. I'm barely fighting to make them fit. I am struggling to keep up. And then finally, I build my character. I'm like, okay, I can stand toe to toe with them. And immediate says upgrade the character to level 2. And so you're like, okay, so now they're rolling these dice that can one-shot me. Sure, why not? So I always felt like I was struggling to keep up. With Pandemic, that wasn't the case. Pandemic is like, the world is on fire. You just need to learn how to deal with it. And this is the
It's
nature
fine.
of this is the nature of COVID.
Yeah, you don't die in Pandemic Legacy, right? You never get personally injured. Like in Madara, your character can get removed from the game, like I had in the literal first turn of playing Madara.
Yeah.
Oh, what a terrible experience!
Well, you shouldn't have stood there.
I'm not going to listen to Bairnt.
You shouldn't have stood there. That shouldn't be an option for what you die.
Okay. I know we're talking a lot of. Okay, the thing is, so we've talked about putting too much stuff into story that's expanding a game. We've talked about potentially putting levers in to keep people that enjoy it at different ways, right? One thing we haven't talked about is from a publisher, producer's point of view. Sometimes the balance starts disappearing because you're expecting the people to play in a certain way that you
That's
don't.
a problem.
Exactly. I think the biggest one I can think of, and it didn't happen to me, it happened actually to Colin, I'm putting you on the spot again, is I know that he was having a trouble in Sword and Sorcery near the end. He just wasn't, he was losing interest in the fact that the game was not providing the challenge he was hoping for anymore. Because you at one point were drawing like superpowers for all your monsters, even though
3 powers per enemy that would show up.
And that's because I think if I remember looking at it, they expected you to sometimes not make it or something and lose this like experience points and things like this. But if you don't, then you overbalance. That's the other thing, a design decision that has to deal with trying to keep balance moving. Like Colin's already said, hey, if you're winning, make this thing a little bit more, like give us some rewards, but make this thing do this or this. Like it's a fine balance to walk, but you have to have something. And I think sometimes they only design the first 5 levers, first 5 levels, and they don't really sometimes take into account what could happen as that go, like as it spirals off into like different directions. This is my spider like webs.
Yeah.
These are my spider webs.
Yeah, I don't know if they can do that.
Spider webs.
Oh my gosh, what is happening?
You know what I mean?
I don't know how much of that. But Bairnt, I don't know how much of that they can be responsible for, right? Because a game shouldn't be made to say, okay, I expect the players to play this way.
Right, exactly. So like so in other words, instead of having players play the way they're giving them the option to play that way, they have to include something that makes it so, okay, so they've done this in this mission, this should enter in, or they should do something like this. But like Colin said, he had to make up his own house rules to make the game continue to go forward and be pleasurable for himself. Oh man. So
lovers and pleasurable. All right. We got 2 already on this one.
Oh, Steve, what do you got there?
So good.
Oh my
God. Good.
Here I try to be normal and like actually make sense, and then all that comes out of my mouth is the wrong word.
Why would you try and be normal? That's no fun. Come on.
So I think that's probably the hardest part of campaign games when it comes to producing and publishing and creating, is trying to find that balance. I know we've kind of touched on a little bit, but I mean, I think that's another part that can get people out of campaign games. If I start just stomping over and over again on things, I don't want to play it anymore. It's like, okay, I might just read the story. I might as well go play Legacy of Dragonhold and just read a story.
Roll for Adventure. I loved the game. And actually, the last 3 chapters of that, my wife and I just read the book, because literally we could beat every single, didn't matter what it was, we could destroy it. We had so many cards and abilities, but I loved the story enough. We literally still read the story because it was so freaking good. But yeah, I think the hardest part about any of these is how to keep someone's interest going forward. So, the other thing with Sword and Sorcery is that I was using the same abilities for 17 some scenarios, right? Okay, I'm going to still use my same thing to do the same thing, to do this, to do this attack, to do this move. And in a way, it's cool because you grow that character, but my goodness, by the end, you're just kind of, you're not even thinking, right? It's rote. I'm just going to do this thing and that's how it's going to work.
Do you feel that stuff is mitigated based on, and this is, I'm still in my head going between the Ameritrash and Euro style games, but do you feel that ease of dominance is mitigated by throwing dice into the mix for luck? And does that offset that feeling that you get of, oh, I could just walk this game, so I don't need to deal with that? Now we've added dice into the mix.
Usually by the time you get to the mid or end of the campaign, you're rolling so many dice, or you have so many abilities to reroll dice. I mean, I'm thinking of Sword and Sorcery. I had 6 or 7 different ways to reroll dice for specific attacks. And when you have that many different ways to mitigate that randomness, it got to be pretty consistent where you could do a certain amount of damage. And then also what they do with Sword and Sorcery is a lot of your abilities that you gain give you auto damage.
Right.
So you'd be like, I don't even have to roll. Right. I only have to roll for the enemies because I already have, 15 damage coming in on this attack. Because that's how they level you up, right? Which is cool. So all of a sudden my attack does 2 auto damage plus I rolled 2 red dice. But those 2, the 2
so
damage.
The mitigation became too much. The reason why I ask is because games like Kingdom Death Monster, there is a dice or Trespass Odyssey for people who don't care to go into the Kingdom Death Monster avenue. There are things that you can get that will add dice, but that doesn't improve your chance. Yeah. It improves your chance to hit. It doesn't mean you're going to hit. and so if they say, okay, well, your mitigation is break tokens. So you've got a break token in a pool, and this is for ATO. I think Bairnt said that y'all were going to probably check into playing that. But you got break tokens in a pool. So you roll. You take a token, you can re-roll a die, but that you only have as much mitigation as in the pool. So now there's a finite resource on dice mitigation, and it doesn't really help your case for, well, more or less help your case for fighting. Do you feel that would help mitigate that? So now it's not, okay, just I've got this what do they call those things? This thorns damage that does +5 if someone touches me. And then when I roll my dice, I just really need to roll 1 because I'm going to do 10 billion damage. Instead, it's, okay, you're going to roll 3 dice to hit. One of the, it doesn't matter, and you have a pool of 2 break tokens that let you re-roll the dice. It just lets you hit twice potentially, and then you've got the Aeon Trespass to go through or the body part to hit type of thing for KDM. Do you feel that would help mitigate that overpowered feeling?
I think so.
We'll find out.
We'll find out. I'm having a real hard time following how it works. I'm thinking of Oathsworn though, that they do a great job of making you not feel overpowered because of the 2 blanks being an auto miss. So you can get those super strong cards or the super strong, and you're like rolling 8 dice and you go, wait a second. I don't know if I want to roll 8 dice.
There's times we're like, oh, I could roll right now my guy can roll up to 5 dice in all different colors. And I was like, oh, these are all actually pretty good. Sometimes we're like, we're going to take these.
We're going to take those 2 out because we just need to hit here.
So it's the auto fail. If I'm hearing you correctly, it's the auto fail fear that is about a 50% ratio no matter how much dice you roll.
Yeah. And it's the fact that the more dice I add, I could get more damage, or cards that you flip, but also it's more likely I'm going to miss.
Yeah, the potential goes up.
I love that.
I think that's a really good system. Kingdom Death does that very similar to. Yogi Bear is actually talking about it in chat. He says exactly, more hits equals more chance of getting a trap card in KDM. The way KDM works, the more hits you hit, the more you draw hit locations. There's a trap deck in there. Not to mention some of the locations you're hitting might not be the greatest for you at the time. Yeah. So sometimes you don't want to go in and I hit 6 times. Okay, you flip over all 6 of these cards, and then you try to wound each one of these, or you hit the trap and all of them just go right back in the deck.
And I love that. I love that. That's about KDM where it's I've done this massive amount of damage. do I want to do this massive amount of damage?
Yeah. So I think having that thought is something that really helps out. Now, for sword and sorcery, let's just jump back to this one a little bit. One other thing that could happen, which they kind of do in Oathsworn, is they give you the ability to only bring a certain amount of resources to the table. And you have to kind of decide going into that battle, do I want an attack that hits a whole bunch of people? Am I fighting a whole bunch of people? Sometimes you don't even know you're walking in blind. And so I think that also gives the chance of not having, like Colin says, well, I do the same thing with Rose. I just do this, this, because that's just what she does, because I have all these powers I've had them since first level. In Oathsworn, yes, you have those powers since first level, but sometimes you might not want to bring some of those, because what you're fighting after you're looking at it and reading about it, because you got some insight, you're going to change up kind of how your deck works, how your character is going to work to hopefully fight against that. I'm going to bring up a video game here, and I'm going to do a small spoiler to it, but this game was made so long ago that if somebody hasn't played it and is going to, and I'm spoiling it for them, so sorry. Another thing that would be neat in some campaign games that may happen that I haven't experienced yet is there's a Final Fantasy game, and it's rated one of the best Final Fantasy games of all time. Yep. And why is that? Is it because halfway through you've been doing the same thing over and over for halfway, they flip the entire game on your head, and all of a sudden you're starting with new people, new places, new things, and that was a huge thing in the video game industry because we hadn't seen that before. And would that be something in a campaign game that might be kind of cool as your characters are leveling up, so you get to like level 20 or halfway through the story, something cataclysmic happens, and like the skills that you had are gonna, like, some of them you disappear because you don't have an arm anymore, let's say, so you can't do dual wield. So now you got to rebuild that, you got to get different skills to help your characters. Now all of a sudden the game almost became kind of fresh in a way, because you have a whole new way, a whole new world you're in and everything. It didn't go to that extreme in the Final Fantasy game, but the characters you were using all of a sudden were scattered again. You had to reclaim these characters. You had the characters you weren't originally playing with. Well, you kind of were, but the ones you're playing with weren't the ones you normally were playing with. They weren't the ones you started with. They're ones you met along the way, kind of thing. So I don't know. That's something to think about too, in a way to keep a campaign game fresh as you're moving forward.
So I'm curious what you think about some of these campaign games coming out, like Val and Villainy. I'm already mentioned. That one, you can, every game you play, you can choose a different character each time.
Love that. I love that.
Different character each time. Same with this is coming up soon. I'm going to be covering for it. I do have a video on there now. Medhala does that too. You literally pick a new character each time through this campaign game. So is that one of these? Is this a trend we would like to see more of?
Yes and no.
Okay.
And
I think yes.
I would, well, for two reasons. One, yes, super cool to be able to switch out your characters. We do it in Oathsworn, and I think that's really fun.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's great. We can do that. But Oathsworn does it in a way that makes it so it's a double yes. The only reason it's a no is sometimes I like the personability of a story that's going on in a campaign. I like them to be able to reference my characters instead of just, oh, your party has traveled to here. It's like, oh, along the way, like your character you know that this character, what it's gone through already, and like has maybe a flashback to something that's happened in the past that has more meaning for being in this area or something. Sure. Where if you don't have that, like cling to a character type thing, you don't really get that in the story. But Oathsworn, for some reason, doesn't ever reference names or anything, but the story is still unbelievably like
it doesn't reference names, but it says, do you have the
cur in your team?
The cur with you? Do you have the blade? Yeah. So it guides you to things like
a little bit. But I still like the way that their story really makes it feel like I'm invested in this. I'm invested in these individuals doing this. And I know they just reference those the Oathsworn, which kind of works.
Yeah, I think well, Kim asked an interesting question I want us to get to because I want to hear y'all thoughts on it. But I think that the you can make that happen, like Final Fantasy US 3, Japan 6. I think you can make that happen if you have a small set of group of switch out characters like what y'all are talking about for Oathsworn. And just keep it small. That way you can switch out, the story still stays consistent to them, and you care about what they do.
Yes, and I do, and like you're saying, it also comes down to how many different mechanics do they have. Oathsworn has story, battle, done. I mean, those are your two core things, right?
Yeah.
Where sometimes like Sky Kingdom Games is on right now. Thank you for joining. It's awesome to have you here. They have multiple things as well. They've got battle and travel is kind of their due, and then they've got a third element, which is the story, encounter events, things that go on. And I think they balance all three of those really well. And so as long as you have a balance and all that, that's another thing where Kingdom Death kind of falls flat in its travel phase, where it's kind of okay, get there.
I want to jump in too because I know Sky Kingdom's on here because it's something he did with Ice Fair and Guard, and you brought this up, Bairnt, was about the video game example. Like, oh, I need to have some prior knowledge to change it, and so like in Ice Fair and Guard, each region has different battles or enemies you'll come across, and they all have different approaches or strategies against the player. So you can have different builds. Like, oh, I'm in this region, I need to have this weapon and this power to really manage this enemy type I know that I will encounter at some point. So that's something else that was very unique, I thought. It kind of leaned into your video game example, Bairnt.
Yeah, that's the JRPG style.
Yeah.
In all JRPGs, regions are there, and you can see recurring monsters in those regions, and you need different weapons. I want to get back to Kim's question.
I do too. Let's do it.
So, because I want to hear all your thoughts on that. So go ahead and read that one out.
What's the difference for you when you can play a one-off game a bunch of times, but a campaign game turns uninteresting, can't get through it, even if it's a game you like?
So what are y'all thoughts on that? So basically, it's you got this one-off game that you can play when you're done with it. You box it up, you put it away. It's not a campaign.
Spirit Island, like that.
Spirit Island. Perfect.
Sure.
I can answer
so you play
really
that,
easily.
and then you've got Oathsworn, which has a huge campaign to it, 120 hours of gameplay. What's the difference for you for that?
Huge difference. There's a huge difference. You know what the difference is? Who I'm sitting with. When I'm playing one-off games, I don't play them solo. I play games with people. But when I'm playing campaigns, I want to be able to play it solo and enjoy it. That's kind of why I started playing campaign games. I play them solo. What's
behind that? What's behind that?
I don't like what's behind it. If I'm gonna play one, I love discovering the story and what's going in a campaign game, and I can do it solo, and I can have the enjoyment factor. It's almost like playing a video game, a long video game like that. It's kind of hard. I enjoy being able to sit down and play it by myself and experiencing the story, experience the character growth, experience what's going on in them. Same in a campaign board game. I can experience what the character's doing. I can experience these cool like concepts.
But you can't do that if you play that with.
I don't like playing one-off games by myself.
I will add to that because I agree, but I want to narrow down a little bit. So campaign games for me are best played with low player count, solo, two-player, something like that. But the reason that is true for me is because of it's very difficult to schedule and have people sit down at a table to continue that story, right? Okay. That's the big factor for me. Like if it's a campaign game, like there's 6 people and they have to be invested the whole way through, they can't have people drop in and out. Then no, it's not going to happen.
No. So, okay, go ahead, Colin.
I was going to say it's interesting because one of my favorite campaigns that I've done is Gloomhaven. And that's because I had 4 people that came every Sunday night for almost 2 consecutive years that they have come over, and we've just played, and we've got this rapport now with Gloomhaven because of it. Even though the scenario design wasn't different, even though the story, I don't even know what was happening in the story. It didn't matter.
There's no story
right?
to Gloomhaven.
There's no story, right? But you know what there was? There was the absolute enjoyment of us 4 playing that game over and over again and just experiencing it together. So I think that for me, a campaign, I need to have, it's either going to be solo or it's going to be someone like with Bairnt, who I know is willing and is able to consistently play it over and over again to get that feel of the actual game. Because, I mean, one of our biggest problems with Journeys in Middle-earth was that we played it a bunch when we were at a con. We played it, we're like, oh, this is so fun. And then we left and didn't play it for a month or 2. We came back and we went, what the heck's going on? What's going on with even the story? So in order for a campaign game to work for me, I need to be able to have whoever's going to play it with me consistently come and play it over and over again. Otherwise, I'm going to lose the story. And when I lose the story, I lose the excitement for the game, even if I love the mechanics.
Yeah, so the recurring thing that I'm hearing is around scheduling when it comes to campaigning. For Bairnt, it's preferable to play it by himself too, so that he doesn't, like you said, Colin, lose the story and
I
he
had the
can
same thing
dive
with
deep.
Colin though with Gloomhaven. I mean, I had my Gloomhaven group. We wouldn't get together as well as they did, but like Colin saying, story. I mean, we might only get together like once every 3 weeks or once a month or something. Didn't matter about story with Gloomhaven. No, it was all about getting together and playing games. I don't know if I would ever bring Gloomhaven out solo and play it. I don't really feel.
It's too daunting. That's too daunting. It's too daunting. Well, the problem is that we all, what I really love about this group is that we all arrive from different avenues, right? Colin, you've got a group that you play with, and you've got Bairnt that you play with, and then there's some games when you record them playing them solo. Bairnt, same thing. Steve, Kim's there. You and her play games. I am solo, 100%. And so when it comes to campaign games or one-off games, I actually look forward to playing all of them with someone. I don't mind playing them by myself. I will love Bairnt and I are in the same camp of loving the story and diving to depth. But I feel like I miss that other mind. Mm-hmm. That other mind that tells me, don't do that.
You should go this way.
and so when I go to Gamepalooza, one of the many reasons that I have a great time is because when we play a game, I've got Kim, I got Steve, and they're like, when we're playing a game, they're saying, well, I want to do this. And they're like, well, why do you want to do that? Well, I shouldn't do this. Well, what if we do this? And that conversation, I don't have innately. Mm-hmm. So playing a campaign game for me is very important from the core mechanics and story standpoint. If those two things are there, I will love the game. If they're not, it'll fall off for me. And I'll be honest, I explained in my video why Oathsworn fell off for me, and it was because of one of those two things not being there.
Yeah.
And so it becomes very important for solo gamers to have the things that they care about in the game be so tight that it works. Otherwise, I don't have anybody else to feed off of to say I can forgo this mechanism because I'm having fun with you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I do want to jump in on something Colin mentioned real quick. So Colin mentioned about if you forget where you are in the story, it kind of drops off for you. That motivation ends, right? And I saw this pop up on Valen Vilni, which I was surprised to see. And that one, they had the campaign, and before the campaign says, by the way, if you want to refresh where the story is, go to this page of the book and read this paragraph. Yeah. And it summarized the previous story. I'm like, that is awesome.
Madara does that too.
They have the Spark Notes. Yeah. And so you can reread the Spark Notes. The Spark Notes is usually only about, I don't know, a couple paragraphs of what you did last time.
But that's just last time. Is that for the whole campaign, whole story?
It's where you left off, yeah.
No, it's just for the last play, not the full story, right? Or is it?
The Spark Notes cover everything. So if you left off, you can be like, okay, these are the short Spark Notes of where you are.
Have two options. You can even read the Spark Notes before your encounter, so you don't have to read this 8 pages of text or whatever that they have.
You're being generous. 8 pages.
Otherwise, like Angie said, if you wanted to, before you read the 8 pages of text, you're like, okay, what was going on exactly? You get into page 2, and you're like, I can't remember what Rook was doing. Why is this happening? You can go back and kind of look at the Spark Notes from even the last couple previous narratives and look at them. So
I think it's a really nice solution. So,
and of course, Oathsworn has that one where you can go to the encounter book and just read the one page if you wanted to go before your next mission, or you can read the pages previous to kind of catch up on the story if you want to. I might do that sometimes because I don't listen to Colin.
I know we're kind of towards the end of the time here, and unfortunately, I'm going to drop a little bomb towards the end here. Maybe a bomb, I'm not sure.
I'm sure it is.
So, I really enjoyed how Assassin's Creed was set up as a campaign. And I was trying to understand why. And I think the main reason why is because each game was...
I'm sorry, Steve. I'm sorry. Please don't get rid of me. Please
Just give him his picture, Steve. Just give him his picture. Get him up.
There you
There you
go.
go. Perfect.
Now we're
Perfect.
Yeah.
Sorry, Steve. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to do that.
You're good. So yeah, as for Assassin's Creed, it was because each game was only like around 45 minutes to play a campaign, a story element, right? And so it was so short that if I wasn't streaming it, I would easily play twice in a row, or maybe 3 times in a row, right? And having that flexibility to be able to play a campaign game as long as short as I wanted in a sitting, and still get the numbers right, because there's a lot of missions now, right? I think that was a really great way of formulating a campaign in that sense.
Short missions.
Short missions, and then you get a lot
tighter
of them.
experience, and then you're able to split those experiences so that if you only have 45 minutes, you can play that, enjoy it, and then move on to
Exactly.
life, or be able to play multiples back to back. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Kind
I
of
think
noticed
that
that in
could
Rogue
work.
Angels too. Because there's that timer that you only have a certain amount of turns before it's over. So you gotta get that mission done. I think that's that same kind of thing where it'd be like 45 minutes for a mission done. Go. It's kind of cool.
I like that idea of like a 30-minute camp mission, and
Gosh,
you're done.
4 hours. Jeez.
I don't know a lot of games that do that.
No, there isn't. There isn't, right? Because well, especially with campaign games, they get you into a scenario, and usually there's a lot of moving pieces, and so you're spending 2 to 3 hours trying to figure out what's the best course of action. How do you handle this enemy? And so it's hard because you don't want to lose the fun of trying to determine how to deal with some difficult situation in a game that may take. I'm just thinking with Oathsworn, there are certain encounters that I can specifically remember that took us almost 4 hours to complete for Bairnt and I. And they were so awesome because we had to figure out the puzzle of how to deal with them. And so would I be able to get that in a 45-minute versus the 4-hour experience? And that would be my only concern with making them short, 45 minutes is is that almost too quick to get in and get out, and you're not able to get in depth enough that you may be looking for, especially when playing a campaign game, because you don't have to refamiliarize yourself with the rules. You can really get into some nitty gritty. How am I going to handle this? How am I going to deal with it, and whatnot? I don't know.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Good point.
I know that we're right at time essentially, but I just was thinking that we could each really quickly say like 2 or 3 things that we feel like are the most important for us for a campaign game. So meaning, what do you feel like when you're going to decide whether to back a game or not back a game? What do you see for a campaign game specifically that you go, oh, because they have this, I want to do it?
And let's put also one thing that when you see it, it's not something that's really a big factor to you.
Yeah, that's not a big factor? Yeah, okay.
But it's still cool to have, but it's not something that's making you like, oh, I have to have this because of that.
Yep.
Like what part of a campaign game?
Oh man, that's a tough question.
I'll jump in. So, I love it when I see campaign game with like 10 missions or something like that. Around 10 minutes plus minus 5, something like that around that. Depending how long the missions are, of course, right? There's some play in there. But I want to be able to get through a campaign and then move on to other stuff. And honestly, if it's short enough, I'll come back to it. Like I played a Reichbuster campaign, which was 8 missions, multiple times. I played through the campaign a bunch of times.
Yeah,
I won't do that as likely. Eventually I will, but I won't do that for longer games like Sword and Sorcery. Oh my gosh, like that game takes forever to do, right? Or Gloomhaven, no way, right? So like just because you have these numbers of missions, it implies like, oh, I'm gonna have a lot of game time, but no, you can replay this stuff, right? At least in my experience. And maybe that's not true for everybody, but for me, I like replaying games. So that's one big thing for me. And I already mentioned the shorter, keeping it shorter, because I know for Sword and Sorcery, I'll be playing the game, I'm having a blast, it's a lot of fun, and like, you know what, this is a good stopping point in this scenario. And I turn the page, like, oh, we have this more thing that comes out, like, oh, okay, you could have stopped there. You could have broke this up, right? So those are 2 things for me. Shorter, keep it moving like that. I think that's the main ones for me. So,
I think you've hit me with an epiphany. I don't think I just had one because the reason why I'm turned to the side is because I'm looking at all my games trying to find the answer to that question. And what is coming up is that because I've culled my collection a lot, so now I have a tight set of games that I have, and all of them, every single one of them, save for Aeon Trespass Odyssey and ISS Vanguard, are not campaign games.
I was thinking, so Derrick, why I brought this up is because I was thinking about when I was talking to you about a few games that you were getting me really excited about, Zeruia, Gloom of Kill, Fourth. All of these games had really fun, you build your character, but it's all one session, one-off session. And so I felt like you tend to like those games where it's, hey, I sit on the table, I start with nothing. At the end of the game, I've made this crazy character, but the game's done. I put it away, and then I can pick a different game the next day.
Yeah. And I love Eldritch Horror for that.
Mm-hmm.
I love Nemesis for that. Like I'm looking at my games. Robinson Crusoe, one hit, you're done.
Another great one. Frostpunk.
All these things are games, like you said, that are they have. I like Arkham Horror LCG. All these games have you sit down, you play. Once the mythos is done, you're done. And you can continue the story, but you approach it from a different way with Eldritch Horror, new investigators, a new great old one to take on. So yeah, I think you hit me with the light bulb going off of I might not be a campaign game guy.
I know I'm not. So I tend to avoid them, honestly. So
ATO is breaking that rule for me, though. Aeon Trespass Odyssey is genuinely amazing. And I think
would you say Kingdom Death Monster would be the same for you, or just because of monetary reasons it's not in your collection, or is it?
I think it's because of monetary reasons. Okay. When I played on TTS with you, it was incredible. And KDM has this beautiful thing where it's all about the memories. Right? It's all about you go through this game, you get furious. But at the end of it, I still keep thinking about the game. I still remember every major thing that happened in that game. Yeah. And so I feel like I'm hoping ATO has that. Because it was more my price point.
I really think it's going to be that way. I really all the things that even just playing like I think I played basically one round of it. One voyage and one fight of it. I can already see that there's already things where I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that's going on. You know what I mean? So
yeah. Bairnt, for you, what's from Colin's question? What's it for you?
I like everything, and there's I would say some of the things that I look for in a campaign game is it's going to be cliche. I need that story. I need something that's making me want to continue with the actual game of it. But then I also need something in the game that when I'm playing it, I'm like, oh, that's really cool. That's something unique that I'm excited to try in it. Like, instead of just like, oh, you get cards with powers. Well, every game has cards with powers. I want something that's like making this a new type of like experience to me. Like those cards with powers, because they're cards with powers, they do these things, but they have to do it like a mechanic that's something I haven't seen before that hopefully can keep grip with that story to make me want to keep going. Is what I'm looking for, I think, because I have a bunch of campaign games and they all are different in a way. Like here's Bard Song. There's something about Bard Song that's different from Descent, which is different from Wild Ascent. I mean, but sadly, once I've started digging into these, once I got past mission 5, some of these Descent didn't hold up. The trick to the pony trick here didn't keep me going. It didn't hook me.
Core mechanics fail.
Exactly.
Dude, that game was so much fun. The first 5 missions, we were having a blast.
I made it 5 missions.
Because honestly, to that one, it was all about like board presence and the way the characters moved around and all the monsters coming in. I thought was really cool.
And the flipping the cards mechanic. Loved that.
That was great. But then realizing the fact that you're rolling one flipping die every time. Whoa, yay, one die.
Remember we took on the boss.
Let's look at the amount of successes. Oh, look, let's watch the screen. Oh my God, look at all these things. I poisoned him. I apparently got a critical hit. Oh, I don't even know what I did, but that
I want to do all that with my dice, with the stuff.
I know. I don't want to roll one die and type a bunch of numbers in. Anyway, sorry. Yeah. Okay, so that's like Kanji said, core mechanics, and not only do core mechanics have to be good, they have to be able to like stick and be like unique enough to make me want to really try that out. What's
Robin,
going
Please
you're
on?
read
awesome.
Robin's comment. Robin's comment is amazing.
Oh yeah.
What do I look for? What game has the largest box, will take up the most room, and come in with even more minis? What game will make my wife cry when she sees it on the front?
That's exactly it, Robin.
Nice, Robin. Amazing.
So,
And even
so
that, I
Colin,
need-
what is it for you? What is the thing you look for?
Yeah,
But I haven't talked about
Hold on.
exploration yet.
Oh, sorry. Go
No,
ahead.
I'm
Go
kidding.
go
Go
for
ahead.
it. Seriously, go for it, Bairnt.
No, I was just going to say, like,
Okay.
that's the thing I like about AS's Vanguard is the fact that it's more of an exploration campaign as opposed to like a fighting campaign. There's different themes and different things. Those are the other things I look at too.
Yeah.
So there's 3. Ha.
Yeah, and I would say Derrick and team. I think the hardest thing is I still don't really know. I keep thinking that I'm going to find something that I'm looking for, and I haven't quite found it. But Oswald has been the closest that I've come to it, where when I'm playing, because there's that stark difference of story versus encounter, I love that when I'm coming to play it, I'm like, okay, am I doing story today or am I doing encounter? And it's fun to go, oh, today I'm doing story. It's something different. And then, oh, this time I'm going to an encounter. So now I need to think of this thing, right? I like that I have that variety so that it's not, okay, I'm doing the same type of thing every single time I'm playing that game. So I really appreciate that. I want a game that I don't have to worry about the levers, that the designer figures out the levers. So meaning that if I'm winning it, give me harder things while still giving me good stuff because I'm doing a good job, but make the game harder because I'm winning. And if I start losing, please help me. Because if you don't help me, I'm going to stop playing your game, right? Because I'm not going to, people don't love just getting hammered down. I mean, okay, there are some exceptions, as Bairnt knows from his people that watch his channel that tell us to total party kill every time we play. But in general, it's not super fun when you go to play an encounter and you lose every encounter 3 or 4 times in a row. Like you're talking about Pandemic Legacy. You lost four times in a row. It's like, why do I want to play this anymore? So I want to have a game that the designer knows how to be able to change the levers on the game itself. So if I do start losing, hey, prop me up, help me up a little bit, and then get me back onto that even keel line. So
I'll throw something
those
else
are
real
things
quick.
I'm looking for.
It's just how my brain works. But oftentimes in campaign games, you got that story element, and I found that I do best when I have the words in front of me, and if they're reading along, someone else reading along, that's fine. If I can read with them as they're reading, cool. That really sinks into my mind easier. If I don't have the words in front of me and someone else is reading it, I struggle a little bit more. I do follow along, but I struggle more.
That would be
having it.
Bairnt to a T.
Never happens to me.
Yeah, exactly.
I
will say, foreteller helps a ton.
That's what I was gonna say. I love foreteller. Shameless plug for them, but I love foreteller because I prefer to have the immersive voice acting.
Absolutely.
Than reading text because
I like it off camera.
You just have Colin read it. I'll get you different voices. Okay?
This has to happen. This has to happen.
Or my favorite is when he's like, and then you're going to go and attack this thing, she said. Or she said.
And it's supposed to be a female.
But Kanji does bring up a good point with this too, is the fact that I love foreteller. I use foreteller whenever I can off camera. I don't do it on camera unless I'm recording something solo. First off, I find it more difficult to record, believe it or not, with foreteller when it comes to editing and trying to get it all to do stuff. But when Colin and I play together, being able to read and not have foreteller is amazing because we can stop each other at different places and be like, and so then I'm like, wait, what do you mean they're going west? Why would they, like, if we had the way to stop foreteller, rewind? It's just a lot easier for us to do it. And I think that's a way more enjoyable experience when I'm at the table with people to read it.
We can read faster too. That's the other thing.
Yeah,
right? We read faster.
I just love. I don't know. To me,
but I love foreteller if I'm by myself or if I'm playing with somebody who doesn't care for reading it, would just like to sit back and listen.
And I think that's probably the thing that sinks it for me is that since I'm solo, it's the perfect addition.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Because you can read along while you hear it. That's perfect. That's absolutely perfect.
Yeah.
And you can really grasp those characters. It really brings them more to life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely.
Okay, sorry, Steve. We interrupted about everything you were saying.
Nope, that's what I said. You're good.
Okay, what's bombshell?
Yeah.
That was a bombshell. It was earlier. We're good. We're good.
Oh, we're good. It was.
It bombshell?
It didn't explode, Bairnt. It didn't.
Is it like
It's
a
a
dud?
done. It's a done.
The bombshell earlier was the 45-minute plays.
Oh, it was disgusting. Got it. Okay.
Total bombshell. Bairnt didn't even notice. He wasn't paying attention. I do it all the time. when I
Hey,
play
Bairnt,
games with
we
him.
just hit Independence Day. Do your finger check. How many fingers you got?
So you guys are doing D&D with him. Make sure that he's paying attention, okay? Because you'll have bombshells and be like, "What? What happened? Wait, what were you saying?"
that is on him and his character to keep. I'm so looking forward to it.
No respect around here.
I
was a
gotta
perfect,
tell y'all. Yeah, I gotta tell y'all, this has been an absolute pleasure, and this has me so excited for Gen Con because we're all going.
Yep.
We all get to hang out, and I love that like it just works, right?
Yeah.
We can all just start talking and talk about
Yep.
anything.
I'm going to bring my campaign game for us to play.
Minimum 4 hours per mission.
Oh
Permission.
gosh!
Permission.
Oh gosh!
That's it. That's how it goes.
Oh.
We'll have just Bairnt read it. Only Bairnt will read the whole story narrative.
Well, Colin's got me questioning my life choices now.
My
Sorry about that.
fee is coming to get you. So anyway, I would like to say that Colin, being here is amazing to have you here. It's super fun. Thank you so much for joining. I kind of concur with you. I think we're always going to be on the hunt for the perfect campaign game. There's a lot of really good ones out there. I know we've kind of touched on things we enjoy and don't enjoy in campaigns. And just because we've mentioned games we don't enjoy, it doesn't mean they're not good games. It was just something that at the time, having another thing we didn't talk about is the fact that we have so many of these. There's only, and we are in the camp that we have so little time to play them.
Yes.
So we really kind of have to pick and choose the things that we really enjoy. And it might not be what you enjoy. It might be what you do enjoy. But there are so many games out there and there's so many different players that is one of the hardest things to do, is to find the game for you that really sits well.
Yep.
I would play so many more games if I wasn't doing content.
I did buy a lottery.
Or won the lottery. Yeah,
I
if I won the lottery, I
That
would
too.
stream every day. I'm not gonna lie to you.
I worked on a lottery ticket, so if we win, I'll be able to split that like 20 ways, and I think that would still be okay.
Awesome.
If I don't stream for a good month and a half, I won the lottery and won a trip.
So since we have a guest, Colin, what do you have coming up on your channel?
Oh gosh. Nothing. right now.
This is what I sound like every week.
I know. I'm going on vacation for 3 weeks.
Ooh.
Well, 2 weeks we're going to Glacier, and then right after that I'm going to Gen Con. So I'm actually doing nothing right now. I'm taking the whole month of July off,
Nice.
just
Very
having time
nice.
with the fam.
That's
Nice.
fantastic.
It's awesome.
Well,
Yeah,
you have a video coming up though that you already helped. That's the 40,000
yeah.
sub.
That's right. We've got our 40K video where we're going to talk about our 40 game forever games, which will be super fun. So that should be coming out next week, actually, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, I think so.
I think so.
I just recorded my little portion last night. So
40 games that you will never get rid of.
there.
Well,
so there-
collectively.
collectively, yeah, within our
We
group.
did, I think 5.
Yeah, we each
Oh,
have
gotcha.
5, and then there's going to be a couple that are community based as well.
Yep.
So
right.
kind of cool.
I know one of Bairnt's and one of Steve's for sure.
Oh,
You probably know 5 of mine.
I was gonna say I know pretty much every single one of Bairnt's, and then I guessed them, and I looked at them, and went, yep.
You might have you might see Nemesis on there.
Yeah, there might be something to do with aliens. Who knows, right?
All right. You might see
I know-
King of the Monster.
So, Bairnt, what do you got coming?
I'm kind of in the same boat Colin is, except minus the vacation part. Usually I kind of take July a little bit slower. So we actually are going to attempt our first double stream ever
Yes.
in our history. We're going to stream Monday and Tuesday because our goal is to finish sworn by Gen Con. And if we do Monday and Tuesday this week, we only have one more episode left, and that'll be the final one before we leave for Gen Con. So that's kind of what I got coming up in July. I might get a painting episode in there too. Other than that, I've got vampire chapters. The first mission I'm attempting to get up. I have to apparently record what I like about 5 games at some point. Still haven't done that yet. I'm always the last one. If you ever see any gray hairs on Mike's head, they always come from kids. No, they probably come from me. Because
Bairnt, when are you getting your video? Bairnt, when is this coming? Bairnt,
Never
you
get it
got
right.
that video ready.
It drops. He's like, Bairnt, have you do you need another day on this video? No, it's uploading right now.
I haven't even recorded yet.
It's not even recorded. Exactly.
Oh my! I don't even know why it lets me stay here, but I do. So yeah, I got to record that today, maybe. I think it's due Sunday. I got Sunday at least.
Okay.
So yeah, and I'm gonna do chapters. I do have a prototype copy of Rogue Angels I'm digging into right now. I'd really like to get that on. If I hopefully get that done before Gen Con. Otherwise, when Colin and I get back, we might actually. Since we just finished Oathsworn, I've talked to him and might do a couple missions of that just to kind of see how that game plays and show him the mechanics and be able to see how it plays kind of live in an unrecorded format. And then move into Aeon Trespass Odyssey. Other than that, I think that's I think that's all I got.
That's the deal. That's the deal.
That's the deal.
All right, Steve, what do you got going?
I want to jump on this comment real quick. Matthew says, look forward to seeing you all at Gen Con. Get ready for a bro hug. Hold you to that, Matthew. Hold you to that. So I'd love to see, honestly, anybody who's at Gen Con, if you happen to see us, please come up and say hi. Please. I would love to put a face to a name and just get to know everyone a little bit better. So, okay. Content coming up. So, super excited for tomorrow. Tomorrow on Kanji Studios, go check it out. We'll be playing Dungeons and Dragons. It's going to be Derrick DMing, Bairnt and his wife Robin, and then Kim and I as well. So the four of us on this one. And there's been a lot of work going.
It's been months in the making.
Put it that way.
I've been hearing about it so much. I'm not even doing it, and I've been hearing about it, so I'm excited.
Oh my gosh, I'm so nervous.
You should be. You should be nervous.
It's gonna be a lot of fun. It's gonna be a lot of fun. So that's tomorrow night, and then for channel Monday, I've got Deep Rock Galactic, so I'm gonna continue on with that one. It's a series, but not campaign, so I'm gonna show some more missions on that one. Planning on a different type of mission to Monday, and then I want to do a procedurally generated map the week after that, I think, so you can see how that works. And also, on Wednesday, I plan to demo or show Spirit Island, Nature Incarnate, because that just arrived. So I started playing with a new spirits recently, and it is a lot of fun, so I'm going to show that off. So.
Cool. Yeah, for me, as you said, tomorrow is a double stream day. In the morning, I'll be playing The Captain is Dead, which I borrowed from Steve at Game of Palooza, so I'll be playing that. And then tomorrow night at 9 p.m. Eastern, we'll be playing our first session of D&D with Kim, Robin, Bairnt, and Steve, and me as the DM. And it has been a lot of prep work to get stuff up and running. But what's really amazing is that Foreteller has I love them, and they have provided music for our play. So you will be having music to ambient music going on as we play, provided by Foreteller, which is going to be pretty amazing. And Chez Piku will be providing the battle maps, but we'll see that in the we attribute to them as the different cycles go through. Then next week, I am hoping to get Perseverance to the table. I don't know if any of y'all have played that, but it is a massive Euro.
Yeah. Now I know which one you're talking about.
Yeah.
From Mind Clash? Is that?
Yeah, from Mind Clash.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to get that to the table, and then also Black Sonata. And both of those games I'm about 75% on Perseverance. I still need to finish up reading the rule book. But I've never played Black Sonata, so I'll be looking at videos of reading rule books on to do it.
Yeah, that's a good one.
And Pac-Man will be back. He is back from vacation, so he and I will be playing some game on Thursday that I don't know what it will be yet. But that's what we got coming up. It's going to be an interesting July, and then the break for Gen Con, where I get to hang out with these wonderful gentlemen and everyone else that's going as well. And so after that, we get back, I'm probably going to sleep. So that's about it.
Understand that.
Bairnt, you talked about recording Rogue Angels. I I'm waiting for the getting closer to the Kickstarter date to do my playthrough, because I also want to do a series of the game. I really like this game as well.
Same.
So I think I'm gonna hold until it gets closer to that time, and then you'll probably see three video playthroughs from me come out on Rogue Angels for the Kickstarter. So I want to give it a lot of press. It's a really fun game.
We should talk about how we're covering that game. Maybe we can have some cross
Colin and I are gonna do a few live,
each
but
other.
then I'm planning to do some recorded videos as well.
Yeah,
just to,
yeah, sweet.
It's a very fun game.
Oh, Colin, you're gonna give it a shot?
Yes, he is.
Excited.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Cool.
He gets to watch me say, "Okay, I got this great plan. Watch this," and then
That's every play we've played of Rogue Angels.
every time.
It's gonna be awesome.
Cool.
right.
All right. I think that's going to wind up wrapping up for this week. So I don't see any reason why we won't have it next week. And we'll probably have a chat next week as well. So as we keep going through. Of course, getting to Gen Con, we won't have one that week because we'll be gone. But I'm hoping to provide some content for you guys either while we're at Gen Con or shortly after when we get back. So,
are you sure we're not going to have a co-op chat at Gen
See, I
Con?
thought we could all do one.
Place for it, yeah.
I think so. I got to figure out how to make it work hardware-wise. So, but yeah, we can figure it out.
Laptop and one webcam.
Yeah, we'll all just push next to each other.
Yeah.
You know, we'll be
We can
buddies.
just push my computer back super far. We can all sit right back here.
I think there is like a hall you can get, and they have the mics that we could use. But I think it would be a great place to do it. But it's up to y'all. I'm not going to pressure.
I would love to do it.
It's
Just got to figure out the
super fun to do it
logistics
live.
of it. So.
Yeah.
We can. I think the best part would be if Colin, myself, and like Steve were together, and we still like piped in Kanji from a like laptop somewhere.
Hotel room.
No, I am finding y'all during Gen Con. I think I'm looking forward to, like, if we're able to get people to come in and sit and
That's what Matthew just
with
said.
us while we're doing it.
Yeah.
Just make it this massive thing.
Yeah, Colin and I have
No.
kind of gone back and forth about doing a Oathsworn recap at Gen Con, where like we
Ooh.
could have like an open mic for people
Yeah.
if we wanted to, but we're still debating about this.
Yeah.
Slaps.
The open
This
mic
actually-
scares me.
Yeah. This actually spurs a lot of thoughts. Steve, you and I will get together and we'll check with y'all to see if y'all are interested in doing it. Well, there might be a way to like get a booth, not a booth, but a section, and just have like our cameras and mics and be good.
The biggest
we can make it
hurdle
work.
in my experiences has been the network connection because there's so many people. The network is actually pretty poor there, so we have to figure
Okay.
it out.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
let's talk it
we'll
over.
work on it.
Let's talk it over.
Yep.
Because I would love to do it.
Yeah, a panel would be great.
It'd be amazing. It'd be really fun. Okay. I think we've gone over time, but we were
Yes.
pretty on topic, I think. So
We did
good
pretty
job
well.
us for once.
Yeah.
Colin kept us on topic. We're
That's
good.
I tried. Wrangling rhinos or
Everybody.
something. You know?
If you need to know, we learned one thing: Kanji hates campaign games.
Yep, pretty much.
Well, I learned
You
two
just-
things.
you just-
I learned that Derrick and Colin also hate Fifth Element.
I can clearly tell everyone that Fifth Element's terrible.
It is terrible. I agree, 100%.
Okay, we're done. We're done.
We started and ended with that. That's perfect.
This wouldn't be the same if it wasn't for the chat being able to keep us in check and having some wonderful discussions as well. So thank you all, the chat, for being here. My wife included, of course.
She's great. Great. All right. Thanks, everyone, for watching. We'll see you at the next stop. Bye-bye.
Take care, everyone.
Bye.